Have you ever wondered what happens when a medieval prince decides to solve his problems with murder? Because in 1407, one royal assassination would plunge France into a civil war that lasted decades and changed the course of European history forever. This is the story of Louis of Orleans and John the Fearless, two men whose deadly rivalry would make Game of Thrones look like a children's bedtime story. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why this medieval murder mystery is still talked about 600 years later. Picture this. It's November 23rd, 1407, and the streets of Paris are buzzing with tension. France is struggling under the weak rule of King Charles VI, who suffers from what we now believe was schizophrenia, leaving him unable to govern effectively. This power vacuum has created a dangerous Game of Thrones between two ambitious men who both want to control the kingdom. On one side, we have Louis of Orleans, the king's younger brother. Charismatic, cultured, and politically savvy, Louis has been acting as regent during the king's frequent mental breakdowns. He's everything a medieval nobleman should be: handsome, intelligent, and utterly ruthless when it comes to getting what he wants. But here's where it gets scandalous. Louis is also rumoured to be having an affair with the Queen herself, Isabeau of Bavaria. On the other side stands John the Fearless, Duke of Burgundy, and Louis's cousin. John is everything Louis isn't: practical, calculating, and absolutely brutal when crossed. He's earned his nickname through his military campaigns, but he's also politically astute enough to know that controlling France means eliminating his competition. And right now, his biggest competition is walking around Paris, completely unaware that his days are numbered. The tension between these two men has been building for years. They represent different factions in French politics, different approaches to the ongoing 100 Years' War with England, and most importantly, different visions for who should really be running France. Louis favours a more diplomatic approach with England, while John wants to crush them militarily. Louis enjoys the finer things in life and courtly culture, while John sees this as weakness and corruption. But what pushes John over the edge isn't just political disagreement. There are whispers throughout the court about Louis's relationship with Queen Isabeau. Some say they're lovers. Others suggest Louis is manipulating her to maintain his power over the king. Either way, John sees this as both a personal insult to the royal family and a threat to his own ambitions. So John decides to solve his problem in the most medieval way possible: assassination. On that fateful November evening, Louis of Orleans finishes dinner with Queen Isabeau at the royal residence. It's been a pleasant evening, filled with conversation and court intrigue. Louis is feeling confident about his position, unaware that his enemies are already moving against him. As he prepares to leave, he has no idea that John the Fearless has spent weeks planning what's about to happen. Louis mounts his horse and begins riding through the narrow streets of Paris, accompanied by only a few servants and guards. It's a route he's taken countless times before, through the winding medieval streets that offer perfect cover for an ambush. The evening is cold and dark, with just the flickering light of torches to guide the way. Suddenly, armed men emerge from the shadows. They're not random bandits or criminals. These are professional killers, hired assassins working directly for John the Fearless. They surround Louis and his small party, and what happens next is swift and brutal. Louis tries to fight back, but he's outnumbered and caught completely off guard. The assassins strike with deadly efficiency. Louis of Orleans, brother to the king and one of the most powerful men in France, is hacked to death in a Paris street like a common criminal. His servants are either killed or scattered, and within minutes the deed is done. The man who had been regent of France just hours earlier now lies dead in the mud, his blood mixing with the filth of the medieval city. But here's where this story gets really interesting. Most medieval assassinations were carried out in secret, with the perpetrators desperately trying to cover their tracks. John the Fearless does the exact opposite. 3 days after the murder, he appears before the royal court and openly confesses to ordering Louis's assassination. This isn't a moment of guilt or remorse. John stands before the assembled nobles and justifies his actions with a speech that would make Machiavelli proud. He argues that Louis was corrupt, that he was manipulating the king, and that his death was necessary for the good of France. He claims he acted as a patriot, not a murderer, and that removing Louis was his duty as a loyal French nobleman. The royal court is stunned. Never before has someone openly confessed to assassinating a member of the royal family and then defended it as a public service. But John isn't finished. He goes on to detail Louis's alleged crimes, his supposed affair with the Queen, and his mismanagement of French affairs. It's a masterpiece of medieval political theatre, turning a brutal murder into a patriotic act. The immediate consequences are explosive. Louis's son, Charles of Orleans, swears vengeance against John and his entire family. The French nobility splits into two factions, the Armagnacs, supporting Louis's family, and the Burgundians, supporting John. What started as a personal rivalry between two men now becomes a full-scale civil war that will tear France apart for the next 30 years. This conflict, known as the Armagnac-Burgundian Civil War, weakens France so severely that it allows England to achieve stunning victories in the 100 Years' War. The Battle of Agincourt, immortalized by Shakespeare, happens partly because France is too busy fighting itself to present a united front against English invasion. The murder of Louis of Orleans proves that in medieval politics, sometimes the most audacious move is the most successful one. John the Fearless doesn't just get away with murder, he temporarily wins the power struggle and controls France for several years. It's only later, when he's assassinated in revenge, that the cycle of violence he started finally catches up with him. This story shows us that medieval politics wasn't just about honor and chivalry. It was about power, ambition, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win. John the Fearless understood that in a world where might makes right, sometimes the most effective political statement is made with a sword in a dark alley. The assassination of Louis of Orleans reminds us that some crimes are so bold, so audacious, that they change the course of history forever. Thank you for watching and for joining me as we revisited one of history's darkest crimes. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss a journey into the shadows of the past. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, the past is never really gone.